Let me start by congratulating the two teams that will be competing in the MLS Cup. It's a very exciting time for two teams that have never been to the championship game before, both Columbus and the New York Red Bulls. As many of you know, many of you follow our game very closely. The amount of excitement that's taking place and has taken place in both of those markets has been almost unprecedented, certainly in New York, where the Red Bulls have been featured in all over the local newspapers and in the local media, and that's a very positive thing for them. We will have one team that will be winning their first championship. It's good to be back in Los Angeles. This is a very passionate soccer market. We've got such great history here with World Cup finals and Women's World Cup final, and obviously our two teams in the Home Depot Center and really the site of so much strength and passion on the youth soccer market. So we hope to have a sellout. Most, if not all, of the tickets are gone by now. We've got the berm that's on sale. Within that are obviously lots of LA Galaxy season ticket holders. So we're hoping that they'll come out and support the league, even though their home team is not in the game. There are a number of things that have been going on during this week and will go on for the rest of the weekend that I think is a sign or an indication of the continued evolution of Major League Soccer. As many of you know, we launched MLS Works, our philanthropic effort, last year, and we've got a number of players that are in town doing appearances. Dwayne De Rosario and Diego Gutierrez are in town. Casey Wasserman, who very well-known local sports marketing executive, is leading a discussion with our players and with some sponsors on our efforts behind Nothing But Nets, which is an anti-malaria or malaria eradication program, and they'll be going out to the community and doing some local events. AEG and the LA Galaxy are the host for this weekend's game, and we've had them and Chivas USA very involved in hosting our board in a number of activities that have taken place over the last 24 hours and over the next couple of days, and I hope all of you get an opportunity to share in some of those activities. You know, it has been a very good year for the sport, and it was an even better year for the sport in 2007. As some of you know, 2008 Major League Soccer received the Professional Sports League of the Year award that was granted by the Sports Business Journal. That was really honoring the league and our clubs for all the developments that took place over the last 12 months. And it's a time for all of us to really take a step back, as so many different challenges are going on throughout the industry, to recognize that this league in a very short period of time has achieved some really terrific things. You know, I'll start with, before I get into our board meeting, I'll start with these are challenging times for the sports industry. It's a challenging time for any company in this country or throughout the world, and Major League Soccer is really no different than any other business that's operating in what is probably the most trying economic times in our country's history, certainly in our generation. We and our clubs are working hard to ensure that we could weather that storm, and watching what we spend and how we spend it, and ensuring that we're doing as much as we can to drive as much revenue as possible over the next year or two or three, or however long this economic crisis lasts. 2008 was a good year for us financially in terms of being able to hit our business budgets. 2009 and beyond, we're going through a very careful evaluation to ensure that we could manage whatever risks exist in our business on the revenue side, and managing very carefully against that risk with how we spend. It doesn't mean how we spend our money on players, but it does mean how we go about marketing the league and going and advancing some of the initiatives that we have tried to put in place over the last number of years. And that process is one that we at the league office have been going through for a number of weeks, and it's something that we shared with our board earlier today. So a couple of details on the schedule. The 2009 season will start on March 21. That'll be 1 week earlier than it was during the 2008 season. We will have a 30-game schedule. Each team will play every other MLS team home and away for a base of 28 games. 2 additional games will be played intra-conference, and we'll have those intra-conference games on trying to build up the rivalries that exist amongst many of our teams. We've spent a great deal of time over the last 6 months. It started during the summer when we had challenges with Toronto and challenges with DC United, with trying to figure out how we manage through what will be 12 international fixture dates, even more than we had in 2008. I made the decision last year to change midstream and start rescheduling games, and doing that in the middle of the season was something that we believed was not the best business decision or the best competitive decision for our clubs, but we made a couple of changes for 2009. We will avoid more FIFA dates in 2009 than we ever had before in the history of our league. We'll clear at least 2 weekends completely, or we'll play a half schedule over 4 weekends. So we're giving our teams the option to either not play during 2, and we'll pick those 2, we haven't picked them yet, or giving them the option to have a softer or lighter schedule during 4 of those weekend dates. We went through a very careful analysis of what it would take to go through and schedule away more dates. And that analysis was literally having an economic impact on this league between $3 or $4 or $5 million. And faced with what we believe is going to be even more trying times in the years to come, it was something that we did not believe was the right economic decision for our league. So we will have a couple of additional weeknight games that will play within the schedule. So we're expecting that we'll have some lightening or some ability to be able to soften some of the challenges that we've had in 2008. But we were not going to be able to address all of those issues. We will have 15 teams, as you know, in 2009, with Seattle joining Major League Soccer. 7 will be in the East and 8 will be in the West. That extra club, Seattle, will join the Western Conference. I'll go into a little detail on what our format will be, but let me start first with the playoffs. We believe in the playoffs, and as much as many of you sitting around, particularly those that are writing blogs, don't believe in the playoffs as much as we do, we believe that perhaps the most exciting part of our season have been the last couple of weeks. Some of our best attended games were in the last couple of weeks. Some of our highest television ratings were in the last couple of weeks. And if you're sitting as a fan in Real Salt Lake and you're thinking about what it's like today versus what it might have been like had the season ended with just a single table, it's a whole lot better for Major League Soccer in all of our markets, particularly in those markets that have been in the playoffs, having gone through a very competitive playoff series. So we'll have the same format with an uneven number of teams that we had in 2007. That was the last time we had that uneven number of teams. The top 2 teams in each conference will earn automatic berths to the playoffs. The next 4 teams in standings, regardless of conference, will earn wild card berths. The number of games will remain the same, the 2-game conference semifinals, the 1-game conference final, and a 1-game MLS Cup final. So some of the things that we're looking at on a more long-term basis, and we spent a lot of time talking about that today. Our board meetings are spending time talking about the business, but we're all spending more time than ever before talking about the future of our competition. Anything is open in terms of what our future is going to look like. We'll look at if our playoff format is delivering the same kind of value it's delivered this year and perhaps more. We'll continue it, maybe evolve it more. It's possible we could look at a single game MLS Cup final that will be home in the home stadium of the team that earns that right. That's not something that's off the table. It's something that we are looking at. It's something that we talked to ESPN about. What we've decided to do is to get a subset of our owners together, perhaps with ESPN and maybe others, that it can help in a working group to look at what's the best way to ensure long-term that we have the most effective playoff system and the most effective MLS Cup system. 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, we didn't have the ability with the number of stadiums we had. Quite frankly, I don't think we had the ability in a handful of our markets to be able to play that final game on a week's notice in any particular stadium, any particular market throughout the league. Today, and maybe not today, but maybe a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, I believe we'll have that ability. We've got to work through the whole issue of is it a single game or a home and away game and all those things that I'm sure many of you will write about and create lots of opinions about, but it's something that we're taking a serious look at. So we have made a couple of decisions as it relates to our rosters and as it relates to our reserve division. We have a technical committee, we have coaches, we have technical directors, we have owners, league staff that sit on a technical committee. That committee gets together throughout the year. One of the things that we did recently over the last 30 days is try to evaluate the effectiveness of the reserve division. Are we getting the most out of our money with what we spend to develop those last number of players that are on our rosters. Is that the most efficient way to ensure we have the right product on the field with our senior rosters? And are we getting the most out of our money with those players that are playing in that reserve division? And our evaluation in the short term is that we're not, and that we're going to be expanding our senior rosters in 2009 and eliminating the reserve division as it exists today. So we'll reduce the number of development players that are on each team's roster from 10 players to 4 players. So the senior roster, each club will have the right to either have 18 or 19 or 20 players. So based on whether they're participating in Champions League or in Super League, or based on what they think is appropriate for them with their current rosters and how they make them up and how they want to field their teams, they'll have the flexibility under the salary cap to be able to form their rosters in a way that makes sense from them. Clubs will have the ability to go from a 22 to a 24-man player roster now. Very importantly, we're forming another working group, subset of our technical committee, to sit down and take some of that money that now we're putting money out of the development, out of the reserve league, and we're putting it back into our club's hands for their roster. We're not giving them all of that money, and it's millions and millions of dollars. We're carving some of that up and saying, hey, we still need to spend some time thinking about developing the youngest or the lowest players on our rosters. We haven't yet figured out how to do that. That group will meet and we'll figure out what's in the best interest of all of our clubs, regardless of what market they're in. From a tournament perspective, MLS teams obviously will be participating in the Champions League. They'll be participating in Superliga. They'll be participating in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. We will not have any crossover between those teams that are in the Champions League and those teams that are in Superliga. So we've made that adjustment from 2008 to 2009. All MLS clubs will play in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, the same format that we've had for the last number of years. CONCACAF has designated that the teams that have qualified for next year's Champions League, the 2009-10 Champions League, will be New York, Columbus, D.C. United, and Houston. Toronto obviously will have to qualify into the Champions League via the Canadian tournament. Super League, again, no overlap between those teams that are participating in the Champions League. Right now, the 2009 Superliga teams are Chivas USA, Chicago Fire, the New England Revolution, and the Kansas City Wizards. In essence, they're the next 4 teams based on their roster or their standings finish from 2008. First 4 in the Champions League, second 5 are in Superliga. Expansion update. We had visits from 4 of our expansion candidates for the next round of expansion. Just to remind everybody, Seattle's joining the league next year. Seattle has now exceeded 18,000 season tickets, not deposits, but 18,000 season tickets, which is a very exciting development there. That ownership group, Joe Roth and Adrian Hanauer, and the Seattle Seahawks are really setting an entirely new standard for launching an MLS club, and we're very, very excited as to what they're going to be able to bring to Major League Soccer next year. Philadelphia will break ground on their new stadium on December 10th, and they are scheduled to join Major League Soccer in 2010. On October 15th, 7 teams submitted applications to become teams 17 and 18 that currently are scheduled to enter the league in 2011. Those teams are Portland, Ottawa, Vancouver, Montreal, St. Louis, and Miami. There you go. An important announcement here. Montreal has dropped out of the race, so Montreal has not been able to finalize their applications, so our 7 applications are down to 6. So we had 4 of those groups present today: Vancouver, Portland, Miami, and the 4th candidate that came in was Ottawa. All 4 of them spent a half an hour with our board. They made their presentation, and we had questions that were asked. Very, very strong candidates. We had previously met with Atlanta. Atlanta had not come down for this weekend, but they've already had many meetings with us, as have St. Louis, and St. Louis will spend some time with us later on during the weekend. So it's just because we met with those 4 doesn't mean that the other candidates are not still strong possibilities for us. We plan on announcing who those next 2 teams will be by sometime at the start of the 2009, and certainly before the beginning of our 2009 season. This is a group that we believe will take Major League Soccer to an even higher level. Each of them have very, very strong bids. Each of them have their own different challenges and represent different opportunities for us. Many of them, if not all of them, will be here throughout the weekend, so that you're more than welcome to pull them aside and chat with them.